Hello and welcome to the show. I'm here today on BeamNG Drive for some more Canyon Rally. Today we're going to be looking at the 200BX and three interesting sort of racing variants or motorsport variants of the car, starting with a rally spec vehicle. Now, we have had a fair few rally cars go down here before, however this would be the first rear-wheel drive rally car, I believe, to tackle the course. It is also not the most powerful of rally cars. It doesn't quite have the same ludicrous acceleration. However, as you see, with it surviving that turn 1 crest remarkably well, it does deal with the certain harshness of this course pretty damn well. So I'm trying to make the most of the speed. Admittedly, might have taken a little bit too much speed across the bridge jump there. It's worth trying to see if it could be taken flat out, although you then end up approaching about 80 miles an hour, and that launches you way too far into the braking zone, and it's gonna hurt the car. Surprisingly, we'd actually managed to bounce and land on the road without tumbling all the way down the mountain, which is probably a first. Now, as far as being a rear-wheel drive rally car goes, yeah, it does mean that you can spin it out a little bit. For the first few runs I didn't actually realise it was rear-wheel drive, and it was only then that I started to see. I tried to get the power down a little bit too soon, and the car will go around. I also got the vehicle clipped on the dirt. Couldn't really get it off in time. By the time I do get it off, I'm way too far out of position for the next corner, and well, that little bit of hillside has launched many a car. This time, the 200BX is still alive. It is still, I say, drivable. I mean, that is quite a lot of camber going on at the back, but the car did actually survive the tumble. Now, as I said at the start, it does deal with the bumps very, very well. It's yeah, it lands the crest at turn 1 nicely, although trying to get it slowed down for turn 2, if you're a little too late on the brakes, yep, things can go pretty spectacularly wrong. Trying to get out of the pond hairpin, put the power down a little bit too eagerly, and bounced around on the outside. Very, very nasty bumps on the outside of the course there. Throws the vehicle about, and then we are, yeah, a little bit wedged on the cliff. It's just kind of spinning one of the wheels. Yeah, not a good place to have an accident. Up towards the finish line, and once more losing the back end at these high speed corners. It's a painful crash off of the rock. Wasn't quite prepared for the back end to let go. I was kind of all lining the car up for that run towards the finish line, and we just lost the rear of the vehicle. And yeah, you're going to end up down here in the dirt once more. You know, the car pretty sturdy. Tried my best to get it out of there. Was having none of it. Yeah, car pretty damn sturdy to still be working, but yeah, it's long gone. Underbrakes into this next is a nasty braking zone. Nasty braking zone down there with the bumps, and I was a little too far on the inside. Clipped the inside of the course enough to lift the car up and bounce it over, and then, well, we're never going to be stopping. Once more struggling a little bit with understeer, dipping a wheel over the edge. Once more a huge bounce around from the car. Not quite going tumbling off the edge or rolling over, but still not a particularly fun experience. Back towards these fast corners, and I thought I'd got it lovely and smooth through that section. I had not. It ran across it's the inside banking. It was just enough to lift the car up. Almost saved it. I got it back down, and then it was the other side. As we transferred the weight that it went over. So yeah, certainly there were some shunts with the rally car. All in all, though, it wasn't too bad a vehicle to get down here. Good suspension. It was nice for dealing with these bumps. Pretty decent brakes as well for slowing the car down. Didn't have too many issues either with locking everything up. I mean, you could still do it, and you'll see on the little telemetry that I was having to be careful in the braking zones and with, you know, most vehicles, but it wasn't like some of the cars that I've driven that are really very difficult to get slowed down controllably That's, yeah, not the case here as we now come into the pond hairpin. Really got to make sure that you've got the car turned here before you jump on the accelerator. It's tempting to try and get on that accelerator too soon. You already saw me get in trouble this time around. It was much nicer accelerating up towards the next hairpin. Again, you see that we don't quite have the speed that we have been seeing from some of the really high-powered cars. You know, only up to the 90-mile-an-hour mark, and then we run down the hill towards these final few scary corners. A little bit better down here, up to 116 miles an hour. But going to have to slow the car down, minding the bumps on the way in through the first part. Again, it gets a little bit of a twitch on through the next part. This time we do not clip the hillside enough to send the vehicle up onto its side, and there is the finish line, 104 miles an hour across the line. Yeah, it can carry some pretty good corner speed. Doesn't have the ludicrous levels of acceleration in general, as you would expect from a car like this. Pretty well suited to the course, pretty nice to drive, pretty easy to drive down here. Yeah, I liked it. It's got to be things to be aware of being a rear-wheel drive car. It can get a little bit more sideways, and that can get you in trouble with spinning the vehicle out. But yeah, on the whole, it was a nice enough car to drive down this course. Up next, we have got the beast. This is a drifting spec 200BX. You can actually see the silly levels of camber on the rear wheels. Now, a lot more power in this car. However, there is, well, you can see the suspension is not going to be a massive fan of the bumps, and I was already having big issues trying to set off my my path up this hill, car bouncing and wibbling around. Got to be really careful getting the power down, and things do not go particularly well across the crest at turn 1. Somehow I managed to keep it out of the sign or anything, and managed to end up backing it into the second corner. Still, the car is relatively okay, amazingly, from all of that. I mean, you can see it has got crazy levels of steering lock at the front, but we have still got an awful lot of understeer. The front tyres just don't give the car the grip to be getting turned through there. Managed to set fire to the engine as we now go tumbling down the course. The good news, though, we've made another car flag. Not the most spectacular of car flags, however, still, I am always pleased to be able to make another flag, and yeah, even a bit of fire on this one. Now, this car was pretty much the complete opposite to the rally vehicle. Yes, we had the acceleration, but we really did not have any of the control to go with it. Cresting that turn 1 jump, got stuck out wide, was trying frantically to bring the car back onto the road. Not going to be able to do it. The sign causing a lot of damage. It is a very dangerous sign, that one. Has caused many damage to many vehicles, and this being one of them. Now, the other real issue I had with this vehicle, not only was it going very fast when it came to a braking zone, when you did get on the brakes, it felt like there was a lot of rear brake bias. So as you were going to try and slow the car down, if you locked them up, you'd lock the rears up and then you'd spin it. And because it was kind of a drift car, it would handle very funnily coming into these corners as it was spinning, and it was just not very nice. Equally, the jump was not the car's greatest of friends. It was struggling with just small bumps on the course, let alone the suspension having to deal with as big a landing as that one, and thus we go for another tumble and some more fire going on from the car. It will eventually come to a rest, surprisingly on its wheels. Unfortunately, though, the drive shaft, I believe, was snapped in all of that. I may have gone kind of backwards into the crash barrier quite a few times at turn 2. Some of the runs the car was still good enough to carry on, although we still had big problems this time through the tunnel hairpin. It's just trying to get the car slowed down in a controlled manner was very difficult. It was very difficult indeed. Again, exactly the same corner. I'm frantically trying to slow the car down. If I use any more brake pressure, we're going to lock up. I just about get it slowed, but as we go to turn into the corner, we've not got the grip to actually make it through the turn at that speed. And perhaps the least spectacular of crashes, the car pointing backwards. I did sort of cut out a whole heap of them that were literally just me locking the rear brakes in towards this second corner. There was a lot of crashes into that crash barrier. So yeah, it took a fair bit of time to get the hang of this car. It really had to be very, very careful down here. Now on this particular run, I actually do get bounced. I don't know what I hit. I mean, it cracked one of the rear kind of passenger windows. I was going to say where the back seats would be on the car, but it doesn't have any anymore. But yeah, it managed to crack one of them, but I don't think it actually broke anything else. So I guess we kind of just bounced luckily across the rock. That helped us a lot in slowing the car down, bouncing across the rocks in that manner. After we leave the bridge jump again, it is as early on the brakes as I can get, pretty much, just to try and make sure I can get the car slowed down and slowed down in a controlled manner. We struggle through this next corner. Now, I don't really want to be sliding this car about. It's not going to help me in terms of getting a good time through the run, and it's too liable to spin out, especially with all the bumps and the horribleness around here. So yeah, you won't be seeing any of that. Real issue is getting it slowed down into the cave hairpin around there. The back brakes were just completely locked, and I couldn't unlock them in time, really. Kind of just had to deal with it at that stage. If I'd sort of unlocked them, I wasted so much time, I wouldn't have been slowing down enough to make the corner. So yeah, that was a bit of a handful. I was worried about taking this car through this section. It's a relatively high speed part of the course. I thought this car would be wanting to get oversteer, and indeed, as we bounce our way across the hillsides, the car does brake sideways. Managed to fight my way across the finish line, just about keeping control of the vehicle. As you can perhaps imagine, the drifting vehicle was not a particularly pleasant experience to try and drive down the mountain. Largely down to the brakes, I will be honest. I mean, yeah, the suspension was very, very stiff, but the bigger issue I had was the brakes wanting to lock up the rears, and very, very easily wanting to lock up the rears, and trying to get this car slowed down was a tad on the difficult side, especially considering it got up to some pretty decent top speeds. But there we go. Our final vehicle from this episode, it is a drag spec 200BX. Now, we have had the crazy, stupidly powerful front-wheel drive Covert drag car. This one will do some mighty impressive wheelies, and this thing is horrendously fast. Now, I was taking it quite easy on this first run, just kind of seeing what the car was going to be capable of. Now, of course, it's no surprise that a drag car would be very, very fast in a straight line. What was a surprise with this, and unlike some of the other drag cars that I've driven, this one does actually get around a corner. It's pretty good around the corners. Now, one of the big difficulties you had to be aware of is if you were turning and tried to get on the power, the front end would lift up. Whether it goes to a full wheelie or whether it just lifts up slightly, and then you completely and utterly lose any grip. And on this opening run, it was a little bit too much bravery with the throttle that got me in trouble. Carried way too much speed over the bridge jump and wasn't on the brakes soon enough that saw us go soaring off into the pond. Now, you'll see through here as I'm trying to get the car turned, a little bit too eager on the throttle, had to kind of back off, and I ended up taking way too tighter a line through the bush there and bounced my way across the inside of the course. Yeah, this was a little bit of a difficult corner for the drag car as I was trying to get through there quickly. That run managing to snap the steering on the front, or bend the steering on the front as I went and brushed along the wall. That would see us go tumbling off. It was all a bit about patience with this car. Wait to be able to deploy all of the power, because there was a lot of it and it was surprisingly accessible in this car, but you did just have to be that little bit patient. And then you did also have to realise just how fast you were going in a braking zone. It's 120 into this corner, and that's a bit too much speed to be using the normal braking marks for. Yeah, it was never going to stop. The brakes aren't bad on this car at all. Again, pleasantly surprised. Brakes were not bad at all here, but you are still going so incredibly fast. We leave the crest at turn 1. I'm stuck out wide, and we're going to, well, caused a lot of damage to the car from clipping that sign. The rear wheel there is at a 90-degree angle to where it should be. You don't want to end up in that sign. I was a little bit too slow across the bridge jump this time around. That got us bouncing around on the landing and then subsequently bent up both of our rear wheels. If the car had still been working, I imagine this would have been a very interesting thing to try and drive, but yeah, that's interesting camber, very interesting camber going on. Once more dipping a wheel just over the edge of the cliff there. The suspension on this, surprisingly, was considerably better to drive with than the drift car, but it's still not rally suspension. It's still not designed to deal with the harshness of some of these sections. So if you were, you know, on the most parts taking a sensible line, the car was okay. You stepped over that mark and you were going to be in trouble with this. The dirt section, not too bad, all things considered, although not a good idea to get your wheels stuck on the grass. I was trying to pull the car off of it whilst it was accelerating, and I couldn't kind of manage it all in time. Inevitably, things were going to go wrong with the vehicle. Actually, almost a little bit of grip roll. Had the car up onto two wheels later on in the run. I got the car back down, stopped it from rolling, but in doing so, ended up all out of place, and we went for a bit of a saw off of the dirt. Car still works, surprisingly, after all of that. The car was still working, did make it across the line. It does sort of bounce around in a peculiar way. If it starts bouncing around with the rear, then it does seem to go in a very, very odd manner. This car, it took a little bit of time to get the hang of. A lot of it was kind of judging your braking points right, because you were going so stupendously quick when it came to a braking zone. Fortunately, we weren't overheating the brakes or anything silly like that, and we could maintain pretty damn decent corner speed with this. There was never really a fear of grip rolling the car, which is always very, very nice indeed. As we come up towards the bridge jump here again, sticking towards the high 60 miles an hour, and no real problem on the landing. It bounces a little bit, but it was all very, very manageable, and it didn't have to take many attempts to find that absolute perfect line across there. It could deal with it most of the time. Now around the pond hairpin, making sure to not end up in any of the rough patches of terrain. Get the car out of the corner. We can accelerate up towards about 108 miles an hour, but got to get on those brakes. Got to get on those brakes relatively quickly to make sure you get the vehicle slowed for this hairpin, and don't get on the power too soon. It is easy to understeer wide when you do. Now, acceleration down this next section. I couldn't really go too bonkers with the car. I know it will get up to crazy levels of speed, but you've got to make sure that you've got it slowed and turned for these corners. And as the drag car, well, doesn't have the greatest turning of all vehicles. It's not bad for a drag car. It doesn't have the greatest turning of all, though. I did want to make sure that I was slowed down. We floor it across the line. The car's never going to make the corner at 140 miles an hour, but the crash happens after the finish line, so that is okay. Tumbles around a bit, and yeah, well, it killed the car in crossing the finish line. However, it did make it. In all honesty, I was really pleasantly surprised with just how nice to drive this drag car was, considering this is well outside the comfort zone of a drag car. The suspension did a very good job. The handling was still there. We still had enough turn, a little bit of understeer, sure, but we still had enough turning on the most part to carry decent enough corner speed with the vehicle. On to the times, perhaps a little bit of a surprise, it is the drag car that goes fastest. It goes into 9th place, a 134.7. That is a very good time. A couple of tenths down on the Gravel Bandit. That was also a drag-esque vehicle. Half a second down on the Gymkhana Covert, the Pigeon Stig. It beats the Bolide GT Group 4 car, so that's a good showing. Interestingly, the 200BX rally car that I ran here went into 19th place, so 138.4, beats the race Moonhawk, lose out to the SBR4. It is actually slower by a couple of seconds down here than the racing variant of the 200BX. I think the rally car just didn't have the power to compete with some of the other vehicles. A nice enough car to drive, but yeah, just not quite enough power. And the drift car is down in 37th place. In all honesty, I thought it might be further down than that. A 150.9 means it beats the Van Hammer, the Barstow Scepter, the Ford LTD, but it does lose out to the Roma, the Rock Bouncer, the RG Vortex. Yeah, not a particularly fun car to drive down this course, although largely that is because of the brakes locking up the rears more than anything else. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. As ever, I'll put links to all of the mods that I've used in the description, so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. But that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.